It is my pleasure to bring up the brothers in arms. Mark Ebenhock, Richard Edson, Captain Dale Dye, John C. McGinley, they had stepped out. They're going to come back. Sergeant John C. McGinley, Kevin Dillon, Paul Sanchez, Richard Edson, Charlie Sheen. Let's give him a round of applause. Before we start, I'd like to call up the Mayor Pro Tem of Calabasas to give an award to these fine actors and fine gentlemen.
Good evening, everyone. I'm David Shapiro, Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Calabasas, and how about an incredible round of applause for this great evening. I want to welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. The 5th annual Calabasas Film Festival. And before I do this, I want to take a moment to thank our incredible film festival creators and ongoing to the 6th year next year, Nicole Fries, Kelly Fries, Joe Fries, the Godfather, and Natalie Corey for everything they do. They put on an incredible festival. Thanks to all the volunteers as well, and we'll look forward to seeing you next year. I have the privilege to give certificates. I'm going to give one, and I have one for each of you from the City of Calabasas, signed by all 5 council members. Thank you, congratulating you on this incredible, incredible film. 30 years post, the fact that you're all here says a ton. Thank you very much. Congratulations. This is for Paul Sanchez.
Well, thank you all for coming. I think everybody was as entertained as I am. I love the film. I love the emotion that they captured in this. I'm just going to ask one question. Paul, what inspired you at this point to get these guys together and do this documentary?
Well, obviously it was a important film for all of us, and every milestone that went by, the 10-year anniversary, the 20-year anniversary, I always wanted to do something, and this is where it started from. Remember, this is like the 80s and 90s. I was going to make a music video. And thankfully that phase passed. And then it was John Glover and Tex. David Nydorf did a little Airbnb by my house in Santa Monica, and we just came over, had a barbecue, and this happened to be right about the 30-year mark. And I called my partners, Lisa Poggi and Don Anderson, and said, we just finished a film together, and I said, I know what our next film's going to be. And I told them, and they said, we're in pre-production on another film. And I just hear me out for one thing. Let me send an email to some of these guys. If they just don't sound like it's worth it, then we'll just drop it. And I sent it out one night, and 10 minutes later, I got an email back. It was John C. McGinley. I hadn't seen him for 6-8 months. He's deep in, the throes of his new television show. And the email read, I'm in, exclamation point. And then I started getting more and more emails back with all the same, let's do it. And that was it.
Yeah.
We were going to do it.
Well, the inspiration certainly showed in the film. I'm going to ask Charlie, when you said, you made an interesting comment, you said that your career was before Platoon and after Platoon. Do you still feel that way? Do you still feel like that is the crux of where everything began and flowed?
Yeah, no, it's definitely where everything really started. You know, prior to Platoon, I was just a guy trying to get a job, and then after that, there's no more auditioning. It's a whole different reality, you know. And yeah, I'm very proud to have that as a benchmark for when everything changed, you know.
I'm going to ask you, Kevin, because you've had some drama in your life, and do people come up to you and talk about Platoon, or do they talk about other things?
They do. Yeah, they do. I still, by the way, I still have to audition. The rest of it's good for you. That's great for you. No, yeah, it's people do talk about Bunny still. It's
They call you that on the street?
yeah, they still quote. There's a lot of quotes. They you know, ain't nothing like a fuse. You know, all the great. You see that head come apart. So people, you know, beg me to say those quotes. And, sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't.
And John, you the same way? Do you still get recognized for this role on the streets? Because again, you've been visible in other roles.
Well, I don't know. Charlie and I were lucky enough to go straight from Platoon about 10 months later into Wall Street. And I would say Wall Street is infinitely more quotable I get hit with Wall Street much more than Platoon. And I don't mean to make that arrogant. We were lucky enough to get in kind of Oliver's ensemble. And Charlie and I spent a long time down the southern tip of Manhattan learning different stuff. And so I don't know. I don't know what gets quoted the most, but we got on a lucky streak with Oliver, and it yielded pretty profound dividends.
That draws me to the question for Captain Dye. Captain, do you still have interaction with Oliver Stone?
Yes. The Ho Chi Minh and John Wayne of showbiz still see each other with great regularity. Oliver, I think after Platoon, Oliver sort of saw me as his good luck charm. And he either cast me or had me with him in about 4 or 5 other films that he did. So yeah, I see him with some regularity, but he's hard to pin down. He's doing all sorts of other things, and but I think all of us that were involved with Platoon are certainly grateful to him. Say what you will or think what you will, he lit a fire under a lot of our asses that you see sitting right here, and we went a long way because he pushed us as hard as he did.
Spoke with Oliver, and he said congratulations about being here in the Calabasas Film Festival. Told me to hug all the guys, and thank you all for coming out. He's the first person I showed this film, and I didn't have to, not legally, but I did have to morally and ethically, because he's you know, the quote-unquote villain in this. He's of course all of our hero. He's the guy that pretty much made every career up here, and I just needed for him to see it and for him to be so big and magnanimous to say, congratulations, you know, I can't believe you got, you know, the guys back together, and just be so sweet when it's not really who Oliver is, you know. But he's a good guy, deep down.
Richard, have you worked with these guys subsequent to Platoon?
No.
But you still see them from time to time?
More since we did the interviews and get involved with this movie. Yeah, we've seen each other a little more.
Well, I know there's some Platoon fans here, so I'm going to open it up and just fire away with your questions. Yes?
If you could take one day, if you can go back in time and take one day over just for everyone, what would be that day that you would go back to?
Good or bad? What do you, I'm not
No,
understanding.
the bond members.
Oh.
If you could go back and relive one day again.
Like you said, Paul, that the Porto Azul bar, that bar was so much fun. And of course, me and Charlie were about 18 at that stage. So today we wouldn't even be allowed to have a beer. But those are great days. Any one of those days at the bar. And there was actually a great day when we played basketball against the Porto Azul Filipino team. And I think we smoked them. We beat them pretty good.
Yeah, but the tallest guy was about 5'3".
Posting them up and whatnot.
Next question. You, sir. In the back. Raise your hand. No? You, sir? Yes. You. Yes, you.
This afternoon, on TV, I caught the last half of Platoon. And after seeing this documentary, I can't wait to buy the film and see it again tomorrow. Loved it so much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You, sir?
Does watching this documentary give any of you a different perspective on the experience looking back?
Gives me enormous flashbacks. I think I wanted to address that best day thing. There were a lot of really great days, but probably the one that sticks in my mind most was the very first time that I got all of these maggots corralled in one area, and they got their hair cut, which is, for an actor, a major deal. And put them in uniform and gave them their gear. They didn't even know what it was, but I gave it to them all in a big sack. And we marched them out, and I addressed them for the first time as a rifle platoon. And it was at that moment that I had the definitive experience of deer in the headlights. And when I think of that moment, and then who they were 3 months later, when we began to lose them and we felt that emotional pull. And Tom wasn't at all exaggerating, no hyperbole. When we lost a guy, when the script called for him to die and he was on a plane the next day, it was really as though we had lost somebody in combat. There was a certain depression and we had to drink ourselves out of it. But those are great moments, and it's at moments like that that you realize you've done something more than just made a movie.
I'll throw this question out to anybody. Is there a story that didn't make the film?
We don't have enough time.
Far away. We'd love to
It's
hear
going
it.
to take about 30 years.
Just, I have about 28 hours of interviews with them, 1,200 photographs, stories that I'm hours and hours and hours of us just talking about stuff and like remembering, oh my God. And yeah, there's this thing would be like a 12-part miniseries.
Maybe when you release the DVD, you'll put the outtakes in there. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Was there anyone died when they didn't go back to
Anybody thought about quitting any particular day?
Charlie kind of did on the first day of training camp. I remember
What is this you speak of?
first day of training camp. I remember you going, "We got to get a hold of our agents, man. We got to get out of here, man. This is BS, man."
But I didn't have any plan for that, did I?
You're out in the middle of nowhere.
We're in the middle of nowhere, yeah. Yeah, I don't think we could have got our agents on a field radio. Yeah.
Yes.
I remember one where Forrest Whitaker, because Oliver shot this thing largely without any kind of continuity or shot list, he largely brought the entire ensemble of, what, 33, Paulie? Is that what it was?
Yes.
33 actors out to the set every day. And if it was a scene between Kevin and Charlie and the rest of us were not in it, he'd just put us way in the background. And so we came up with a term called power background, where you really started to emote. Even though you were a dot over Charlie's shoulder about a quarter mile away, you started doing power background. Well, Forrest Whitaker and I got good and fucking fed up with doing power background. And we were staying at this hotel that Marcos had built for visiting dignitaries, and it was okay if you were there to take advantage of it. It was called Porto Azul. And so Forrest and I were like, you know what, fuck it, man. If we're not called, we're not going out there. And Tom alluded to it in the swimming pool thing, and there was this lovely swimming pool, and I arranged for a couple of different massages by these gorgeous little 11, 12, and 13-year-old Filipino boys. And so I had a rotation of massages, a little bit of per diem, there was a weight room, and it was nice, it was lovely. And for about a couple of days into this, Forrest came up to me, and I don't do a good Forrest imitation, but he said, yo, John C., if we ain't on the set, we ain't in the movie. And so he starts to creep back towards the set. And I had to fire my fucking rotation of masseuses. And I was like, this is no way to work. This is completely uncivilized. And Oliver just put us back in the power background. Over your shoulder, we'd be up the hill, over whoever was in the frames. So we started to creep back into the film.
Yes, yes.
When you guys came back, did you ever have, or I'm sure at some point right after that, the desire to become more, let's say, politically involved or go back to these places to be with the people in, you know,
In the Philippines, were you guys
or
moved by the
whether it be the
conditions?
Philippines or any other, did it cause more political consciousness on your parts, or?
What I'll say is that, you know, we went over there doing whatever actor research you could, you know. There's only about 3 or 4 books out at the time. And then it's when we met Daiweed that getting first-hand accounts, that it got really personal. And yeah, we would do just kind of like this, a talk for veterans groups. Willem, Tom, Charlie, you know, the leads were doing it a lot more, and whenever we could go along or whenever anyone would listen, we'd talk to them, and just they all seemed happy to get just a little piece of what they didn't get when they got home originally.
I just share an anecdote with you. I flew on a plane with one of the gentlemen that commissioned the Vietnam Memorial Wall, Robert Dubeck. And I did not serve, although I was of age, but I had a high lottery number. But I asked him, I said, what was it like? And he paused and he said, watch Platoon.
You know, we ended up on the, believe it or not, after Platoon won all the Academy Awards, Oliver and I got invited to Chicago to appear on the Oprah Winfrey Show, which was kind of a new experience for me. But the entire audience was Vietnam veterans, and they'd all seen Platoon. And some of the things that they said about the film allowing them to communicate the experience, and to sort of come out of the closet, if you will, as a Vietnam combat veteran. I saw in that audience, and then later on the macro scale, I saw a change in sociological attitude. And that's one of the things, above and beyond what a great job we all did making a film, and the success that it enjoyed, that impact that it had on a huge generation of Americans, both veterans and anti-war protesters and all the others, that film had an impact. It went off like a fucking, it went off like a frag grenade. And that said to me that we've got some power in this medium, and we need to use it for the right purposes.
I want to add something to that, if I can.
Please.
Last year we got together after a lot of the original interviews, and Paul called me up and he said, okay, you're going to be here in LA, we're going to get together with John and everybody. And he said, I want to get a surprise for Johnny. We were going over to his house to hang out for a little while. And he said, can you get some MREs? And I said, sure. So You know, this was supposed to be one of Paul's jokes, which actually went over very well. But as far as what Dale was saying is the impact was very much given to me at that point when I had 22-year-old young men working at the surplus store that I went to. And when I told them what that was about, their jaws dropped. And they went, "You're kidding." I said, "No." "Wow." And I thought, wait a minute, I didn't know that a 22-year-old even watched Platoon. Not in today's whatever. But I mean, at the impact at this point in time, 30 years down the line, seeing a young man still impacted and in awe of this film really, really, really made me feel good. And I think it should make every single one of you up here feel that much better.
I think we as an audience watching this documentary, even if you haven't seen the movie, really come away with the sense of bond that you guys created. It was like you were in the service. It was like you were actually in the situation, because you don't see bonds like that, certainly, you know, normally in films. I did a film with your dad 10 years ago. I've never seen him again. And talked to me with your dad. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I understand films. I understand that bond, but this one is a unique one. This was a remarkable one. Yes, sir.
Yeah, one of the producers actually. I just wanted to point out the little girl that was in the scene.
Yes.
On the Pride is here. Her name's Erica.
Oh, please.
We've got a few more as well. Susie Mallerstein-Watkins, stand up, please. She was our script supervisor. She kept us in line, or tried to, at least on the set. And Don, where's Lisa? Lisa and Don, stand up. These are the producers of the film, of our film. They did their best to keep us in line as well. Is there anyone else? And I think that's it, because I can't see. Oh, and my son, Marco, who was a PA on our film. Now you have to stand up.
We'll take a couple more questions. Yes, all the way up there.
I was just curious, hoping Charlie might talk about how his dad, considering this movie and his dad's movie are pretty much Paramount shows to represent this this event, that maybe there was some insight or some interesting story you might have.
No, I mean, a lot of that is covered in the documentary. I never, I can't compare Apocalypse and Platoon. They're such different experiences, different stories, different styles. I see Apocalypse as one of the greatest cinematic achievements in the history of the known universe. I don't see Platoon that way. I see it. It's social benefit. It's healing properties. I think it delivers itself to a different part of the psyche. But yeah, so I had the benefit of spending 8 months in the Philippines as a child, as I talk about. So I knew enough about the environment, about the terrain, about the weather, to kind of remember, because it was only 10 years later, what to expect going back. And it's impossible to describe, stepping off the plane a decade later, like I had as a child, and it still felt the same. It still smelled the same. It still essentially was the same, but I was different. And also, I'm sorry, I just want to point something out. The documentary talks a lot about how much drinking was going on, and it was of epic proportions. We weren't drunk when we were shooting the movie. You have to realize this, because I don't think the result would have been what it is if we were. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you for this film itself, and not just the recall of the Vietnam experience. I was there in '66, and I haven't seen the whole of Platoon. I'm really pleased that I came tonight to see the whole of your film and to hear from you gentlemen who've come to tell us the story. At the end of your film, you give us the explanation that a lot of us didn't want to acknowledge being there. And this helps acknowledge. And probably it makes it easier to go back and we should tell Stone to release the movie again. Because there's a lot of us that would probably watch the whole thing now. And it took me 10 years to watch Apocalypse Now.
Thank you for that.
So I was going to say, if you'd comment about what your plans are to deal with this film and dealing with what the impact is going to be here.
That's a good question. Where is this film going? Is it going to be theatrically released?
Well, we have a domestic and international distributors, and it will November. We'll have some more news very soon, and I can't really say it.
Well,
here.
you'll get some good word of mouth
Really
coming
soon.
out of tonight,
Really
for
soon,
sure.
yeah.
We'll do one or two more questions, all the way in the back there.
Hey, great job with the film, Paul. And thanks for being in the film. All of you up there. It's been an amazing experience just knowing the film throughout my life. And considering that she's here, I had a question about the scene with the girl and Oliver. And considering today's politics in movies, do you think that there would be a lot of repercussion for some of the methods that he used in developing the film then as opposed to now? But I was hoping you guys would elaborate a little bit on something.
I don't think we could have. It could have been done like that. Yeah.
Well, you seem to have a lot of animosity during those scenes, which I can totally understand. I mean, witnessing those scenes and now understanding what the process was, you know, we all felt that during those scenes. Bunny scene, you know, that kind of scene.
Can we ask the young lady, how do you feel today about that experience? She said thumbs up. All right, last question. Anybody? There, yes.
Platoon won the best picture of the year. What about supporting actor?
What were the Academy Awards for Platoon, for those that don't know?
Best picture, best director, best screenplay, and sound.
Sound, editing, picture, and director. And director, right, those four.
But there were 8 nominations, right? Was it 8?
I think there were 8, yeah.
Charlie and Mullen. Yeah.
I was not one of them.
Both.
Willem and Tom, yeah.
You were robbed.
That's all right.
Well, we want to thank you all for coming out tonight. We really enjoyed your movie. Really enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you all. Right out here, food, wine, beer, enjoy yourselves.